The below is an authorized unofficial translation of FIGU material by Vivienne, Legg and Dyson, Devine, completed in October 2008. It may contain errors. Note, I am presenting first the English translation, followed by the alternating German English version. MH. A prediction what the future brings for the Earth humans in regard to the climatic catastrophe and environmental destruction.
All you humans of the Earth, you are responsible for your well-being and woes, for your Earth's climate, for your planet, and therefore you are responsible for your own life as well as for that of all creatures, for fauna and flora, for all of nature and everything which grows, creeps and flees.
You are responsible as individuals, just as you are responsible as the entire mass of humanity, for everything. Responsible also for all that you ever bring forth in the form of thoughts and feelings and what you affect through your actions.
Your authorities and governments are standing at the very front along with you humans comprised of all peoples, who are responsible for everything which ever occurs on the earth in your existence. And to you all you individual humans of the earth and you responsible ones of the authorities and governments, the following words of warning should be announced already in 1951, 1958 and 1964 and also at other times. Authorities, governments, newspapers, organizations and radio stations had their attention drawn worldwide through my prophecies and predictions to what unpleasant things will come about in the future on the earth and among you humans.
At that time there was still time to be able to change, in part, the announced frightening things, while other parts, however, had to occur unalterably, because they could no longer be changed.
In addition to that and to all that which was predicted and prophesied, the following should now be explained. The first 8 years of the 21st century have now passed, during which the prophecies and predictions of the 1950s, as well as of the 1960s, have been fulfilled as they have in all the decades since, and indeed, up to the current time.
Nevertheless, in spite of the fulfillment of my prophecies and predictions, my warnings were given no heed. Consequently, all over the earth the announced evil increasingly took the upper hand and now still continues to climb.
There are actually only very few humans who took my earlier prophetic and predictive warnings seriously and who also take them seriously today. Indeed, the majority of you Earth humans has not concerned itself about it and today also does not care about it, rather it further tramples the truth underfoot.
So you do not want to know or understand that you yourself carry the blame for all evils and all catastrophes which occur in your society and on your planet.
Indeed, there have always been earthquakes, seaquakes, avalanches, floods, storms, droughts, volcanic eruptions and other natural catastrophes on the earth because nature has always operated in this way since the very beginning of time. Yet it is your own fault that now all these evils have increased to such an enormous measure that they are no longer to be stopped.
And the primary reason for all the evil which rolls over you humans, such as criminality, epidemics, wars, hunger, inhumanity, and climatic destruction, and so forth, lies in the enormous overpopulation which you do not check through rigorous birth control measures, rather you further irresponsibly raise it.
And this massive overpopulation is to blame for all emerging evils and catastrophes of all kinds, whereby also all evils, injustice, of evils and all harm increases incessantly in relation to the increasing mass of humanity.
So, for you Earth humans, the future brings yet many further disagreeable circumstances, strokes of fate as well as misery, need, disadvantage, shocks and disasters which spread out in various things and monstrous catastrophes. Because from now on, this plane's nature strikes back with still greater rage than it ever has before at the insanity of your overpopulation and the connected destruction of the climate, of nature and many kinds of lives.
Already the time has come that, in many places, your planet's nature forces you to flee. This having malignantly intensified in recent decades, as a result of the destruction of the environment, due to your influence, and therefore it is your fault.
Already, today, entire peoples are fleeing from the consequences of the destroyed environment and climatic catastrophe, which is still always trivialized or even completely disputed by irresponsible scientists and know-it-alls.
And there are many humans, and even entire peoples, fleeing from the dangerous effects relating to industrial accidents. Groups of humans and entire peoples also flee from the spreading desert areas, from the climbing sea levels, the destruction of fields and farmland and of mountains as a result of fun parks and sporting facilities of all kinds, but also because the air necessary for life is pregnant with poisonous exhaust fumes so that it is damaging to the health.
Hunger also drives humans away, often because of the increasing infertility of the ground which, because of desolation, can no longer be farmed for the production of foods.
Often, however, as a result of the irresponsible help from aid organizations from industrial countries, diverse peoples of third world countries are flooded with provisions. Consequently, no more farming of foods is carried out by those receiving these foods, or if they do still grow their own foods, they can no longer sell their products because their own production is far more expensive than the foods which are brought in by aid organizations from industrial countries.
It is not only the climbing sea level as a consequence of the melting poles and glaciers, which again and again drives entire groups of humans and even entire peoples to seek refuge, especially those who live on the ancient islands, which are increasingly, and ultimately completely, flooded by the climbing weather, but it is likewise also the increasing demolition of the ocean shores and the loss of ground.
The mass of humans which flees as a consequence of all evil and catastrophes caused by climatic and industrial factors, who are truly environmental refugees and must also be so named, climbs to over 35 million in the next few years.
Yet the calculation applies only for the next few years because through the incessant population increase, which must be called criminal, the number further climbs so that in only 45 to 50 more years the Earth, all countries and humanity will be confronted with 200 million environmental refugees.
Along with that are still very many refugees who will be persecuted on political, racist, religious or social grounds, and so forth, and who will also increase to a number of around 30 million in the next few years.
In relation to the insanity of the climbing overpopulation, the effects of environmental pollution take on forms which become constantly worse and more devastating as well as more catastrophic.
The reserves of drinking water become ever more poisoned, as for example, in Asia through arsenic, from which, every year, many thousands of humans already die, while in other countries the drinking water is always in shorter supply and is ultimately exhausted.
In other locations, the living space for many humans is endangered and destroyed because the rainforests are being felled, and, from that, devastating climatic changes and uninhabitable areas result, as through desertification, respectively, the advancing of deserts, right up to the areas inhabited by humans.
Also, more and more the waters are being fished out, animal species are being made extinct, or the living space is taken from very many animals, as also much fertile ground and farming land and meadows and fields are being concreted over, and thereby nature is destroyed, as is especially the case in the mountains as a result of hotels, holiday facilities, cable cars, ski slopes, as well as military practice firing ranges. All that along with the irresponsible building over of mountainsides as well as seashores and river banks for human habitation and recuperation centers, and so forth.
The atmosphere is poisoned with carbon dioxide from exhaust fumes, principally as a result of too many cars, which are used by all those who do not use any public transport for travel, commuting and shopping, as well as for nonsensical pleasure trips, or who could easily go on foot.
Still to mention are all the heaters and the industrial facilities which are powered with fossil fuels and hardly in spite of filters which are inadequate, hurl tons of filth, dust particles and poisonous substances all came to the air.
And that which flies out into the air as filth and poison also settles down again on the ground, in the soil as well as in the water, whereby the entire world of plants and animals, including the human, is contaminated by it, as are also the vegetables and fruits, which are already contaminated anyway by poisonous sprays and fertilizers in order to increase the yield and profit.
All the world's continents are affected by the destruction of nature and the environment, as well as by the climatic catastrophe and the exploitation of the Earth's resources. Yet that is only the beginning of the coming great evil, the ongoing catastrophe and terror, which still stands before you humans of the Earth.
Truly everything becomes still much worse, and indeed in every imaginable relationship, whereby worldwide,
The streams of fleeing environmental refugees ultimately degenerate and evoke ethnic collisions, as already occur in the industrial countries.
And that is actually already the case, even if there is still not able to see it. Already there exists more or less damage-bringing, undignified, racist, human-disdaining and religiously insulting behaviors from local inhabitants in nearly all countries of the earth toward refugees and migrants of all kinds from foreign countries, whereby, however, the greatest evil in relation to this occurs in the rich industrial countries.
And for a considerable time it has already reached the point where also freedom of belief is attacked and the faithful are restricted in their rights to freedom, whereby also the principal religions, respectively their representatives of all kinds, interfere.
The believers are thus denied their own meeting places and their peculiarities, just as they are denied the wearing of certain pieces of clothing and faith-based symbols and amulets, and so forth, whereby, especially, in this regard, very many followers of Christianity exercise terror and insult the faithful as well as the symbols of the faiths of other groups and peoples.
And it is usual, quite especially in Christianity, to abuse groups which have any religious beliefs which they want nothing to do with, by calling them sects.
Overpopulation, a term which all those stupid and idiotic ones among you Earth humans do not want to admit as being valid in regard to the world being overrun by humans and how they can no longer be nourished and borne by it.
Stupid and idiotic ones with academic titles, popular scientists, newspapermen and know-it-alls of all kind do not want to admit to the truth and even claim that the entire economy, and life with it, will collapse if fewer humans are born and humanity is reduced by means of a rigorous and rationally steered birth stoppage.
But also many among you Earth humans, you who are simple citizens without academic title, and so forth, and who are in support of the further breeding up of Earth humanity. You are also no better and delude yourselves that a federally regulated birth stoppage will restrict you in your freedom.
Yet your freedom will truly not be restricted if your intelligence and reason is appealed to so that you only still produce descendants in an amount such that the overpopulation is reduced and thereby life is preserved in all the environs of the earth, which is not possible due to the mass of overpopulation, because through this, slowly but surely, all life, nature and the climate will be irretrievably destroyed.
How stupid and dim-witted those among you Earth humans would have to be who, bar any intelligence and bar any reason, do not recognize the truth and continue to carry on in the same way with your rabbit-like breeding up of your descendants.
And how stupid and dim-witted are all you who carry academic titles, who are scientists or simply know-it-alls and who, in cowardly angst about your disappearing profit and image, put forward false claims and lies and take humanity for fools, and that you deny the truth in regard to the worldwide catastrophic circumstances and events, are simply not able to see it or appraise that which is evoked by the overpopulation.
Academic or other tales are just as little used in regard to the truth as are all great words which are just as idiotic, stupid and dim-witted as the demonstrably insane assertion that the earth is a flat disk.
In 1951 I wrote, World War I found its inglorious end, which lasted from 1939 to 1945 and cost the lives of approximately 62 million people.
Atomic energy itself was implemented for the murder of hundreds of thousands of people, and for the destruction of their cities through the irresponsible and criminal action of the United States of America, when the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed through atomic bombs.
All that would, unfortunately, however, not be the end of all terrors, mass murder, wars and acts of terror, if the peoples of all nations do not finally become clever enough to relieve their power greedy government bosses of their offices and have them turn tail and run.
Basically, it is the people in each country who choose those who govern normally. Unfortunately, it is the insincere ones who first make great promises in order then, when they come into power, to let war and terror break out and drive the people under their command with lies and deceit, whereby they become dependent on their superiors and misjudge the real truth. That, however, will bring evil consequences in the future if the people don't intervene against them, because worldwide the executive powers will embroil the people ever more in wars, terror and hate, until the whole thing assumes uncontrollable forms worldwide.
Now, What I openly pronounced at that time has since then come true many times over, and already for a long time the threatened monstrous things have developed to a worldwide conflagration in open fire. The time of transition has expired, in which the monster, which was predicted for the future of the entire terrestrial humanity, and for the earth and its nature would still have been stoppable.
No decisive countermeasures can change everything for the better anymore, rather everything can only be palliated over a long time. A change for the better and for the best namely requires a very long time which must be calculated in centuries. To that end, however, it is necessary that you, humans of the earth as individuals and as peoples, as responsible ones of the governments, authorities, states and military as well as all others who are responsible for the world, its security and for life, make a strong effort to fight, and to stop, all evils and catastrophes which have emerged as a result of your irrationally breeding up overpopulation, and go in a positive direction.
If you are not ready for that and do not do it, then you evoke still further terrors which will become an evil scourge of terrestrial humanity. So your future will be further burdened by wars, terror, destruction and annihilation, with deaths in the thousands and millions of murdered and dead people as a result of natural catastrophes, because your monstrously growing overpopulation allows no other possibility.
Humans of the earth, you are to blame that all laws of nature are out of order, so that all storms and natural catastrophes, hailstorms, snowstorms and deluges, monstrous floods, and so forth, are now the order of the day.
Through your overpopulation you have converted the riverside forests, meadow plains, mountain sides and the shores of lakes, rivers and oceans into land for housing. Thereby the world water of the deluges finds its way into your houses and brings death to many of you. You are to blame that, worldwide, the permafrost thaws and evokes avalanches and landslides, while earthquakes, seaquakes and volcanic eruptions, as well as mighty storms, bring death, destruction and ruin. And everything further increases. The gales and typhoons, the hurricanes and tornadoes, which become more and more powerful and destructive. And alone your overpopulation is to blame for everything, because through it and through its monstrous, negative outgrowths, all evil and all natural catastrophes, as well as all human catastrophes of every kind, are evoked.
The unnatural climate change, further wars, crimes, illnesses, epidemics, and all the worldwide terrorism and fanatical religious delusion, and so forth, are malignant consequences of overpopulation. And all that has an extremely disadvantageous effect on your entire terrestrial humanity.
The monstrous mass and weight of your cities, towns and villages torments the inner structures of the earth in increasingly worse measure and presses the tectonic plates so that they shift, which releases earthquakes and seaquakes which demand hundreds of thousands and ultimately millions of human lives. All quakes, however, also have influences on all terrestrial volcanism. On the volcanoes worldwide, which are often connected with each other at great depths and are more and more frequently and more destructively active. That also demands many human lives, especially in those areas where dwellings are built irrationally close to the volcanoes. Yet that is not enough, because through the irresponsible, growing overpopulation, many further, new, monstrous, as well as insoluble, problems emerge, also in relation to famines, which just increase more and more as the overpopulation grows.
Old illnesses and those believed to have been exterminated return, together with new illnesses and epidemics to which many humans will fall victim.
Through mass tourism, the stream of economic refugees from all over the world also grows, because the inhabitants of the poor tourist countries also want to have that which the tourists from the rich industrial countries show them. Consequently, they flee their homeland, and, as economic refugees, more and more seek the life of luxury in the rich countries. Also, the problem of asylum seekers, together with the stream of those fleeing as environmental refugees and the stream of those who are persecuted, increases ever more to the point of insolubility.
It has come about, as was predicted in 1951, that the end of the 1980s would see the collapse of the economic boom and a worldwide, monstrous outbreak of unemployment, never experienced before, whereby criminality, at the hands of the unemployed, the drug-dependent and the work-shy people, just as did criminality at the hands of criminals who do not even shy away from murder when they pursue their misdeeds and crimes. Also national debt clambered beyond measure in diverse countries, as did terrorist machinations. Prostitution took on unbelievable forms of social acceptability and became so carried out into the public that today children are not even spared from it. Prostitution became an honorable profession, which became officially recognized by the authorities and also became taxable.
In every family, television became just as much a part of everyday life as did the technology of the computer. And both the television and the computer became the most important information media, as they also became the significant forms of public advertising of prostitution.
You humans of the earth. Very many of you became cold in your thoughts and feelings in the course of the last 60 years, whereby today your interpersonal relationships bring to light ever stranger effects because everything is still always only function-orientated, even your relationship to your neighbor. True love has become a rarity with you, and you no longer join in marriage because of affection for each other, but only just in order to make a profit, to maintain your image and to be able to indulge in a certain status, which is dealt with by means of reputation and money. These marriages, so entered into, do not endure. Consequently, more and more families are destroyed and even the children are sexually abused, while others become asocial and neglected because their parents do not concern themselves about them. Many among you humans of the earth lead a life that is often only orientated towards drugs, addiction, vices and pleasures, and is distinguished by destruction as well as disharmony. Often your psyches are thereby impaired and your whole behavior has negatively deteriorated.
You humans of the earth, you yourselves are the initiators of all evil and catastrophes which are rampant on your world, whereby you have created the real cause in that you have driven your overpopulation into ever higher numbers and drive it higher still. Therefore you yourselves are responsible for everything, and thereby you are, in your own person, also God, and as such you yourself determine your monstrous problems and outgrowths. You who in your megalomania believe yourself to be the highest and mightiest being in the universe, far higher than creation from which everything has come forth can ever be. Through your fault, through your overpopulation, through your megalomania, through your irrationality and tyranny, you provoke all the powers of nature, which, together with the earth, rebel and defend themselves against your degenerated machinations. Therefore, on the earth the forces of nature overflow, together with the earth itself, because you, earth human, have disturbed and destroyed the entire natural course of the elements and of life.
I have all that to say today. The truth as it actually is. Now grasp all courage, you humans of the earth, to contemplate that which is revealed, to draw the correct conclusions from it and to act correctly from now on. Yet there is very little time to avoid the greatest of all catastrophes, yet you will have to use this time because it runs through your fingers. Consider this truth and act in the understanding of what is right so that you carry out a change for the better. Make everything public that you have come to know the given words, teach it to all humans of the earth, teach it in all your media in order to have an alteration and change in a positive sense. Only when you act rationally, just as you have been told, do you keep yourself from yet greater injustice, from yet greater evils, from further degenerations, many new deaths and destruction, and from this step into ultimate annihilation.
All you humans of the earth, who feel addressed by these words of truth, you have a good opportunity, as was already given to you in 1951, 1958 and 1964, to responsibly use your power and to preserve the earth and all of humanity from all that which is also now revealed to you with new words. Do not delay, rather act, and indeed quickly, because time is pressing.
Act immediately in order to prevent even worse things than those which have already occurred and which currently occur. Act without delaying, because otherwise you will be just as responsible for when the future brings still very much worse things for the earth and your humanity than have already been evoked and become reality through your fault.
Samya's Silver Star Center, July 20th, 2008, 7:14 Billy.